Goodreads, you'll always be famous. Even when the only updates you do are changing the font to your logo or changing the shape of our profile pictures. Shout out to those of us who remember that happening, I think like 4 years ago at this point. There are just too many features that I use daily, namely the feature that I'm sure most of you use on Goodreads, which is tracking your reading, updating your reading progress, that sort of thing. But also, perhaps less commonly, I really like lists. Nothing gives me a bigger thrill than sitting down in January as the editors at the Goodreads News Interview Factory are just churning out list after list in some of the most ridiculous and unusual formats, which is why I can never quit Goodreads, because I have appointed myself your guide to Goodreads. I read books, I let you know what is worth your time and what is not. Today's task, peeking ahead, in this case retrospectively, at 2025's sexiest new romances, let you know what's worth your time and what's worth a skip. Will note, before starting though, that I did in fact skip the YA section of this list, because why are we putting YA books on a 2025's sexiest new romances list? But I digress. I'm going to be letting you know what's worth your time, what's worth a skip. Something that is absolutely not a skip though is protecting yourself and your data online. I know that a lot of us think of data breaches as sort of a meme at this point, because it seems like every day a company is coming out and saying, oh, sorry, your data's breached. Whether it's, you know, an app that you have created an account with or an internet service provider. It's really easy to get desensitized to all of this unless you Google yourself and find out what's out there. Easily accessible reports like this one exist for pretty much all of us, detailing who our family members are, all the places we've ever lived, and other deeply personal information. Definitely not a meme, especially when this information is used to, I don't know, open up accounts in your name. Hello, T-Mobile account I definitely did not sign up for. Stuff we can all be doing before it escalates to that point, which is where the sponsor of today's video, Aura, comes in. Aura protects your privacy by identifying data brokers selling your info. They do the hard work of automatically removing your information from these sites, making sure it stays off of these sites. Sure, there are other services that do this too, but none have as many features as Aura for the same price. Getting alerts if your personal information is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, and 24/7 monitoring to help keep your identity secure, plus so much more. It's a no-brainer. Try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/chandler.ainsley. Those 2 weeks, Aura will get to work scrubbing your personal information off of these data broker sites. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now prepare yourself for some fast talking and some bad innuendo. January. Now, the thing about me, I do occasionally have a 5-star read. Another thing about me is that that's usually not the first thing I get to talk about when I do videos like this. But Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams stole not my heart, but my swollen pearl, and didn't give it back. This book is about Emily and Jack, and Emily can't fucking stand Jack. He runs into her with a full cup of coffee their freshman year at university, and the embarrassment and annoyance that Emily feels every time she sees Jack just never stops. Because everybody loves Jack, and Emily just, again, she can't stand him. It's like everything that he does, nails on chalkboard. He doesn't seem to purposefully antagonize her at first, but I think once he starts to realize the effect that he has on her, he does sort of lean into it and continues to piss her off. The good news, though, is that Emily graduates and she can escape back to her hometown from whence she came. The bad news is that Jack actually follows her to her small town. Good news, though, Jack is actually leaving after a couple of years there teaching at the same school that Emily teaches at because he's engaged and he's gonna follow his fiance. Oh, bad news again, he's actually back in town because his fiance dumped him and he needs a job. And what does he do but get a job again back at the same school Emily teaches at, buying a house right next to her and renovating it at all hours of the night again to piss Emily off. It is so fun. The hijinks, the humor, and the surprising amount of sexual tension by an author whose books famously are void of sex scenes, or at least her most famous one that feels so akin to Wattpad, it's crazy. Luckily, this one does have sex, if my memory serves correctly, and you'll find out, I think, as we continue that it doesn't always serve me at all. Regardless, this is one of my favorite books of the year. It's a 5-star, and this is a book that you absolutely should read. Another thing about me, my memory is, yeah, it's suspect, okay? It's suspect. I tried to play it off like I kind of have a good memory. I don't, in fact, have a good memory. It doesn't help that the Goodreads listing for Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young is now in French, and so I couldn't read the synopsis to jog my memory, and of course I wasn't going to Google it and do a bunch of research. What I can tell you though is that the two main characters, Sarah and Caleb, have been together since high school. They got married at a very young age because Sarah's mother was very close to passing away. To see her daughter get married, and Sarah was like, you know what, I'm gonna make your wish come true, Mom. I'm gonna get married. And it has worked out pretty swimmingly for Sarah, okay? Many years later, maybe like 10 years later, I think she's like late 20s. She's trying to figure out her life. Her husband makes hella fat stacks. I also think he might have some sort of inheritance, but she has recently, I think, been laid off, or she hasn't had a job for a while. She's chilling, being taken care of by her husband, but she's feeling kind of stupid, kind of useless. I'm not saying those are warranted feelings. I'm just saying that's how she is feeling. She's also feeling like her husband's money is something that is kind of getting in the way, actually, of their relationship, and also her self-fulfillment. So our heroine at the beginning of the story, she is trying to fundraise for, I want to say ALS, something like that, because I think her mom had ALS, right? So she's raising money at this gala fundraiser thing, and unfortunately, they're not getting close enough to the fundraising goal at the end of the gala. So instead of being embarrassed by not meeting her goal, Caleb steps in and he's like, hey, I'm rich. I'm going to make sure we hit that goal, right? I'm going to donate some of my own money. And Sarah, instead of being like, oh, my husband about this, she's a little pissed off. She's like, you really didn't think I could do this on my own. They get into this whole argument, this whole fight, kind of puts their relationship on edge. And so they end up going on this sort of like wilderness couples therapy retreat. Sarah also, I think, undergoes some personal growth in the sense that she is trying to kind of find what she wants out of life, and actually put some care and attention and thought into, self-fulfillment and actualization. Good on you, Sarah. I thought this book was fine, but I honestly can't recall entirely if I liked it. I know the first time I picked it up, I didn't, and so I set it down. Think when I picked it up the second time, I liked it a little bit more, but because this is not a standout, and because I have it rated as 3 stars on Goodreads, I think if you want a marriage in trouble story, maybe pick this book up, but I do think that there are other ones that came out this year that are maybe a little bit better. Looking at You, Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. Moving on to a murder mystery romance with a hot Australian hero. She Doesn't Have a Clue is about our cozy mystery author who is invited to the wedding of, I believe, her publisher's daughter, and things get pretty twisty pretty early on because the person who's getting married, this woman, ends up being poisoned, and we're starting to realize there might be some sort of plot going on when it comes to inheritance. And since our heroine writes cozy mysteries, since she kind of understands crime, she decides she's going to try to figure out what the fuck's happening. This is made complicated though by the fact that the hot Australian that she used to date got away. Primarily, I think, because he was trying to catch some sick waves, not sick snatch. This book was fun. It was a fun time. I liked the plot, I liked the characters, I liked the romance. I do wish the ending had been a little different, namely heroine's life choices, or maybe like lack thereof, but overall it was still fun, and I think perfect for spooky season, so pick it up. It always surprises me when grown folks romances make it on these Goodreads lists. I'd say I hate to make generalizations, but who am I kidding? I love them. And sometimes I notice, and I'm sure some of you have too, that a lot of what gets published today is in fact similar. Small town enemies to lovers, age gap, nanny, dirty talking smut, got knife play, mask wearing, murderer, dark romance, or cozy small town gingerbread nothing happens except fucking kind of romances. Those are the 3 genres, actually. You understand what I'm saying, right? That being said, sometimes stuff comes along and I'm like, how did this get picked up by a publisher? Not because it's bad. If anything, I really like it because it's original, but it is interesting because it doesn't seem to fit into a mold that you tend to see getting published these days. Let's Call a Truce is a book about a woman returning to the workforce after her husband unexpectedly passed away. She is trying to generate an income for herself and for her, I believe, 2 or 3 young daughters. She's really depressed, and the prospect of going back to work at first doesn't sound super fun, but when she gets there, she's like, you know what? I kind of really like this and think I'm good at my job and I want to climb this ladder, and I'm gonna do that, except for this fucker Ben keeps getting in the way. Ben is constantly doubting her commitment and her competence, and is just generally making her life harder. The bad news is that they both want to fuck each other. The good news is that they can do that and also correct all of these misunderstandings that they have about each other. It's a nice story. Our heroine climbs the corporate ladder, she's a kick-ass mom, and she gets the dickin' she deserves. There were definitely elements in this book that I didn't love, but overall I do think this is worth your time. I know that modern dating is hell, but writing letters to a man for 3 years, and then finding out he was lying about his identity and scheming on you because it's a 2-day carriage ride from his house and you can't simply FaceTime to see if he's actually who he says he is, brutal. Basically, Lydia, our heroine, is out here writing some seriously seditious pamphlets talking about how women have brain cells mostly. Doing so, she gets a flirty little letter from a gentleman who is an earl, and he says, hey, I like you, little lady, I like your big ideas, and they continue on in correspondence for 3 whole years, right? In this correspondence, Lydia learns a lot about the earl. She really likes how charming, how witty he is, and she starts to realize he doesn't have the money that he should have as an earl. The good news is Lydia does in fact have a bit of inheritance. She's a bit of an heiress, and she's like, hey, your title, my money, let's put them together. She does not say this in correspondence. She in fact hops in the carriage, goes on that little 2-day carriage ride, and shows up and is like, hey, we should get married. I think we're feeling the same thing. But what she realizes when she gets there is that the guy she's been talking to is not the earl. It's not the earl. It's actually the earl's little brother who stole a weapon, kind of mass destruction, and like fucked right off. I don't know where he went, but we're gonna find him. That's the goal. And in doing so, we're gonna team up with the earl, who we actually haven't been talking to, and we're gonna find the little brother. The love interest, by the way, is the earl. It is not the guy she's been writing messages to. It's lovely because you get to see on page the relationship development between these two. It's not like, oh no, everything happened off page, we were writing letters. No, he's meeting this guy for the first time. It's forced proximity as they cross the countryside to find this fuck-ass little brother. It's a whole lot of fun. I think the guy was incredibly sexy, and I think that you should give it a go. Especially if you're someone who is new to historical romance, and especially if you're someone who is just looking for a book with a fucking plotline. The concept of a romance where you have to convince your family to like a man that is, frankly, 10 times more more exciting, interesting, and fun than you're ever going to be is certainly a choice setup for a book. I Think They Love You by Julian Winters is a book about Braylon and Denz, former boyfriends and now seemingly strangers. Denz is working in Atlanta at his family's bougie premier event planning company, definitely not showing up hungover in yesterday's ugly ass outfit repeatedly, or forgetting crucial job responsibilities repeatedly. Bray, or Braylon as he's now known, was Denz's college boyfriend that Denz really thought was going to be a sure thing, a forever kind of love. But Bray hopped across the pond after graduating because he got a really good job opportunity, leaving Denz and their romance behind. Now, 3 years later, Bray runs into Denz, I think at like a coffee shop, and after a series of kind of wild, totally fortuitous events, two agree to fake date to improve their career prospects. What could go wrong? Kind of everything, honestly, because Denz fucking sucks. And Bray, an adult man, has turned into a walking Union Jack. Yes, a man who was gone for 3 years in a foreign country comes back with a love for tea, cozy cats, and a full-blown British accent, which would have icked me out completely had it not been for how annoying Denz was. See, his dad is retiring and he's going to seek a new CEO for the company, so throughout the course of the story, Denz is putting in the work to become the right man for the job. He clearly is not. He's flaky, he's flighty, he's incompetent, and he was just, frankly, a real displeasure to read about. If it hadn't been a family business, there were multiple fireable offenses that occurred, and I might be able to forgive his forgetfulness in business because he was just so blown away by Braylon and romancing him. But no, he was also very forgetful in that relationship too, and there's a moment that I was like, you fucking suck, dude. Like, I just don't understand. Like, Braylon, you're too good for this man. You're too good for this man, frankly. This one is really fresh for me, I think, which is why I'm sounding so heated and why I'm going so hard on it. I actually gave this book 3 stars because, again, despite my frustration with the characters, Julian Winters is a good author. This is well plotted, well paced, and I could tell he really put a lot of care and time into the story. Just because I didn't personally connect with the characters doesn't mean I don't think you should read it. I in fact, do think you should maybe pick it up. Or don't. I think that cock rings on professional sports players is the TikTokification of romance personified, but I can't say that I hated anything else about Spiral. It's a fake dating romance between a professional hockey player and an aspiring professional ballerina looking to kind of level up in her career and get, I think, like a professional spot in a ballet company. She needs more social media fame and he needs less of it. He's just drowning in pussy without a life raft and he wants to be left alone. Pour one out for our king. Anyway, this book is not super unique. It's exactly what you think it's going to be, but it is well written and both characters have realistic flaws, didn't make them exceedingly irritating, so I'd recommend picking it up. Houston, we have a hurricane, and I'm not talking about the mess in our heroine's drawers. Flirting with Disaster is an Indian-American take on Sweet Home Alabama, with our heroine Mina seeking a divorce from her first husband so she can marry her sweet, if boring, fiance. Mina was madly in love with Nikhil, but the differences in their careers and their perceived status because of those careers, paired with a lack of communication, really made their relationship crumble. But they start to piece back together their love when Mina comes to Houston right before a hurricane hits, get those divorce papers signed, and her coochie tickled. You've got forced proximity, you've got a second chance romance, you have a burly, quiet dude who's been yearning and pining for you for years. There's not a lot to complain about here. Only criticism, the only critique, and the only reason this book got 4 stars instead of 5 from me is that I wanted just a little bit more from our hero. Because he was so quiet and because I believe this is a sole, single POV story, we're not getting as much as we want from him, but otherwise lots of fun, very romantic. A book that was unfortunately neither was Temple of Swoon by Joe Segura. Cover of this author's books and the concepts are truly unmatched, but I can't say that my experience with the insides have been quite as spectacular. I could make a joke here about how no one's ever said that to me. I'm mature, and I'm not going to do that. Anyway, this book is about an archaeologist trying to find the location of a lost city and her relationship with a journalist who is tagging along. He, however, is not trying to find this lost city. He is trying to, in fact, keep our heroine from finding the lost city for reasons that are totally justifiable and are not at all unhinged or misguided. Through this harrowing adventure through the Amazon, they fall in love. It was not my favorite on any level. The plot was silly and oftentimes repetitive. The characters were irritating with surface level motivations, and the romance was just really not there for me. No clue why these two were into each other beyond physical attraction. Skip. February. Petition for less killing tools and more sexing tools and romance. The first time you get a melon baller involved in scooping out eyeballs, it's fresh, it's fun, it's novel. Third time, however, when you get a heroine with slightly different jobs, slightly different killing tools, slightly different motives, just starts to feel kind of tired. In this case, we've got a doctor falling for a circus performer who likes to kill people. To me, it felt like the weakest of the bunch in this series, but if you like this series, I'm sure this will butter your strange muffin. Otherwise, skip. Someone needs to check on Allie Hazelwood's back because carrying an entire entire genre on it and cranking out solid, original, beautiful, unique, never been done before romances must get tough. It is actually mind-boggling to me that one person can publish not only one incredible 5-star read a year, but 3, not including novellas. I'm gonna attribute it to her AO3 work ethic. Deep End by Ellie Hazelwood is, I believe, my favorite book that she has ever written. Dare I say, might be my favorite book of the year. It's about a collegiate diver named Scarlett who is coming back from injury and is having a tough time overcoming her fears. Swim Captain Lucas, he is her diving friend's long-term boyfriend who she finds out matches her freak. Her friend Penn is not into being told what to do or spanked or really anything remotely BDSM adjacent. Scarlett, however, wants all that. So when Penn and Lucas end up breaking up, Penn is like, hey, you know, I tried to make it work, it didn't work, maybe you should fuck. And she's like, you know what? Maybe I should. So what proceeds is in fact sexual in nature. However, it is accompanied by Allie's signature humor and incredible relationship development. In this case, there's also a lot of mess with the whole ex-girlfriend drama, and on all levels, I loved this book. I like Scarlett's perfectionism, I like Lucas's persona in and out of the boudoir, and I like drama in my romance. It was perfect. Read it. Daddy means different things to different people. Maybe it's what you call your father. Maybe it's what you call your man when you are horizontal. Maybe it's a state of mind. Now, Tessa Bailey, I think, decided to wrap all of that into one strange package in Dream Girl drama. And listen, I was really excited for this book because I liked the hero and heroine that we were introduced to in previous iterations of the series. This book did not deliver what I thought it was going to. Basically, hero and heroine meet at a bar, instantly attracted, make out, and then they find out that their parents are actually engaged to be married. Womp womp. But the hero, he decides he's going to take on our heroine as sort of a little sister figure. She has had this incredibly sheltered, naive life and upbringing. She, I think, wants to go masters in some sort of performance. She's musically gifted or something like that. Her mom does not want her to leave, but then our hero is like, come with me to Boston. Come with me to Boston and I'll take care of you and I'll make sure everything is good. He pays for her rent. He like does way more than he probably should. It's weird. It's weird. I feel like the heroine is just so sheltered, so as to be infantile and naive in a way that I found kind of weird, especially paired with Tessa Bailey's often too commandeering heroes, like weirdly alpha and protective. Combo was a little bit more off-putting than I expected. I like a good taboo story, but I wanted it to be taboo in the sense that like, oh, our parents are getting married and like, oh, we shouldn't get together. Not in a, I'm your daddy now sort of way. It was weird. Just skip it. Sometimes a book has a good premise, it has a good heroine, but the hero should probably walk into traffic. First Time Caller by B.K. Borison is the first book that she has written, I believe, that is not in her Love Light Farm series. I was really curious to see what she would do next, and this one I really liked the premise of. We have our heroine whose daughter calls into a radio show looking for dating advice for her mom. Mom finds out as her daughter is on the phone, ends up taking it away from her daughter, gets on the line, and gets some really good advice from Aiden, who runs this sort of like relationship and dating advice hotline. Aiden is in a situation where he's kind of not believing in love like he used to. He's just not feeling enamored with his job either. The ratings are going down, but this call goes viral and it generates new buzz, new interest, and Aiden's intrigued. So he has this idea that he and Lucy are going to team up. He is going to help set up dates for her and hopefully find her someone to love. In the process of this, these two obviously start falling for each other, and I loved the premise. I love the idea of it, but the hero was just so irritating. His fears and his expectations around love, I think, were kind of juvenile for the age that he was, and I think his behavior was so hot and cold in a way that was certainly realistic, but was just also really deeply unsexy. I am looking forward to the follow-up, which I believe focuses on a weather boy, but this was 3 stars. I think it's worth a read for Lucy, and maybe Aiden won't piss you off as much as he did me because I am in fact very picky. What part of we want our boyfriends to be boyfriends are authors not understanding? Because you're gonna give us a free co-heroine dating 2 dudes who are best friends and the dudes aren't also gonna fucking fall in love? I'm bored. And I'm also questioning what's in it for our heroine, right? Maybe I'm staid and vanilla. I don't know, but the prospect of emotionally and physically double fisting 2 dongs sounds exhausting. Charlie girl, you deserve better. Skip. Every day I stray farther from God's light and closer towards the path of being a monster fucker. I'm still not there, but the argument does in fact get stronger by the day. I got abducted by aliens and now I'm trapped in a rom-com by Kimberly Lemming is about Dorothy, our heroine, who is a biologist, is about to be mauled to death by a lion when she gets abducted by aliens. And on the planet she's at, dinosaurs and crazy creatures abound. Also, incredibly sexy aliens who want to do it like they do on the Discovery Channel with Dorothy. And they do over and over in creative ways. And notice I said aliens because there's more than one. And I know I said the boyfriends should be boyfriends. I can't remember, to be honest, if they are in this book, but I think with non-human companions, I'm a little bit more flexible here. Nearly as flexible as our heroine, am I right? Was it a romance for the ages? No. Was it fun? yes, I think it's worth a read. I don't think there are many hard and fast rules in romance anymore. As long as you've got a happily ever after, you're golden. You can have serial killers, aliens, unwashed historical beef, you name it. I do think one rule that I'd like to introduce, though, is the idea that you should know who the hero is in a book by the 50% mark. Now, obviously, we've got some exceptions to that rule. I'm looking at you, love triangles, but if I'm unsure at the 50% mark and it's not a love triangle, you have a problem. Yours Eventually is about our Pakistani-American heroine, Asma. She's a doctor, and she is getting a really great opportunity at the hospital in which she has been training. I want to say it's like Berkeley or something. And actually, just Berkeley have medical school and a hospital. I don't know shit about California and their medical schools, but she's in California. Her family wants to move, and they insist that Asma comes with, and she's like, actually, though, like, I got a good job and I want to stay here. They're controlling, they're commandeering, they're like, you're coming with us, right? This book is really about Asma trying to juggle familial expectations with her own desires for independence. And going along with that, she has been fighting her feelings for ex Farouk, who's actually back in town after making his fortune. I believe her family actually originally was like, hey, I know this guy proposed to you, but you gotta say no because he's not good enough for you and he's not rich enough. But now that he's rich, it's like, oh, we're putting us in a predicament, whatever. That sounds like a good premise, right? I think this is supposed to be a play on Pride and Prejudice or Persuasion or something like that. I think it's supposed to be like a Jane Austen retelling. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. It sounds nice. It sounds nice. But the family in this book fucking sucked. And again, I understand that different cultures do things differently, but some families just suck. And I think the heroine's family in this book sucked. There are other dudes vying for our heroine's attention for the majority of the book. I could not tell if Farouk was actually the love interest because the majority of what we get about him is in our heroine's head. It's not actually through interactions. Frustrating because I liked the heroine. I wanted to learn more about her culture, her upbringing, but everything else really fucking pissed me off, so skip. Another book where the family kind of ruined it, Along Came a Moor by Alexis Daria. Our heroine Ava is recently divorced after her husband kind of blindsided her and said that he was just looking for something different. She's starting to grow in her confidence again, though, after this betrayal, and when she meets a handsome gentleman at a bar where she is enjoying a cocktail, she realizes he's the owner of the hotel, and she says, why the hell shouldn't I sleep with him? It is a night of passion and lovemaking and just a raucous good time overall. That one night is not enough for either of them, despite their, I'm gonna say misgivings, but they're not really looking for a relationship, right? So they're sneaking around, they're fucking each other, they're texting, which gets really complicated because Roman is actually the best man in our heroine's cousin's wedding. So they have to pretend like they don't know each other, even if Omen wants to take the relationship to the next level. It was a cute romance, though. I do think it was built primarily on sex. I think I could have rated this book more highly, though, if that was just like my only gripe. But it was also a touch too long, at like 500 pages, and our heroine's family kind of sucked. I know it's really common to have really meddlesome family, but I really wanted our heroine to stand up for herself more often, especially as the book carried on. It wasn't my favorite, but I do think it's worth a read. Some books are simply pleasant. They are not mind-blowing, but they're also not much to bitch about. And the love lyric, and honestly all of the books in the Green Sister series by Christina Forrest, are that way. In this one, Iris is a widow and a single working mom who has a job in the cosmetics industry, and she is launching a campaign with a male R&B singer, and they end up falling in love. At the course of the story, he ends up finding his voice, lol, and she figures out where her true career ambitions and heart lie. And it's sweet, it's low angst, and the characters were in fact compatible. It feels crazy to give this book 3 stars, but it just wasn't stand out to me. That being said, if you can get it from your library, especially on audiobook, it is worth a read. March. Most women are looking for a finisher. Man that gets the job done, both in the bedroom and on the WWE stage. Thankfully, Reese provides both. Wild Side by Elsie Silver opens in a pretty unconventional way for her books. There's no fun, meet cute, or enemies to lovers banter. You have a girl who is deeply grieving the loss of her sister and trying to gain custody of her nephew, but having a damn hard time of it because her sister's neighbor is actually claiming that he has custody of this little boy, and he in fact lives in a whole different country. So after a few chapters of drudgery, a solution is agreed upon. These two will actually marry so that Reese can stay in the heroine's country, which I believe, this is Elsie Silver, is Canada. And they're going to work together to raise this little boy while I believe our hero seeks a visa. And what do you know? They fall in love. After a weird start, this book is something that I ended up liking. It's not my most favorite Elsie Silver book, but even when I pick up books from her that I am not obsessed with, I can admit that they are solidly plotted and paced. Worth a read, and definitely one of her best in the series so far. The Itching My Coochie Cottage Couch, The Radical Roach Highway Motel, The Strawberry Patch Pancake House by Lori Gilmore is the 4th book in the Dream Harbor series, and I think it is my favorite in the series that I have read. That is not saying much. It's about a yoga instructor who is having a hard time making ends meet, so she decides to nanny even though she doesn't fucking like kids. Hero is the single dad, of course. His name is Archer, and he runs, you guessed it, the pancake restaurant in town. It was fine. I think all of these books are fine, but even for me, a vibes-based reader, the small town vibes of the series are really not enough to care about these books. I don't find that the side characters are charming enough to really paint the full picture of a small town, or are the main characters characters interesting enough to get me to care about the plots of these books. 3 stars, very take it or leave it. Now, it's not often that the prose of a book keeps me from continuing. I had to DNF Summer in the City by Alex Astor. Every sentence seemed like it was trying to capture the vibe of Sex in the City or early 2000s rom-coms, and it just couldn't quite pull it off. The sentences were overly verbose. Hero and the heroine and their reasons to fake date weren't compelling. Skip. I don't want to fuck Ned Flanders, to steal a comparison from a lovely Goodreads reviewer. And that is exactly what My Big Fat Fake Marriage is trying to convince you would be fun. Our heroine has kind of sworn off love until she meets Beck, who is super sweet and needs a fake wife for a writing retreat. The setup for this book is fun, and I love that we have a plus-size heroine. But the execution, again, see Ned Flanders comparison. I just don't want a G. Willikers in the bedroom or a dude getting surprised at his own boner. Felt very weird in a very similar way to Dream Girl Drama by Tessa Bailey. I just don't like when a character feels naive and too inexperienced because, again, infantilization territory. Skip. Sometimes fuck-ass bobs don't make you cry because you're the victim of them. Rather, they make you cry because it shows character growth. Sounds crazy, but Kira Stone pulls it off. In Promise Be Sunshine, Lenny, our main character, is grieving the death of her best friend, Lou, a girl that she has known for a very long time, roommates, besties. Ever since Lou has passed away, Lenny is trying to avoid their shared apartment. I think she's like sleeping on public transit when she does sleep, and she's taking odd jobs across the city. Really not coping well with this grief. Until she gets a job nannying a very sweet little girl named Ainsley and meeting her uncle, Miles. Miles is sort of a dick until our heroine gets to know him, and then he makes it his mission to help Lenny with her grief. And yeah, that does in fact involve getting a fuck-ass bob. Kira Stone is an author that I've only started to get to know this year, but I'm really growing to enjoy her stories. She just have a lot of emotion and really sweet romantic connections with writing and heroines that can feel a little bit nuts at times. It makes for a really endearing package, and you probably will cry reading her books. Plus, they're just the right amount of angst too. You're not getting a book that feels overly complicated or anxiety-inducing. You know you're gonna get happily ever after, and it's gonna be fairly easily achieved. This is a 4-star read for me, and I think you should pick it up. The Love Simulation is a strangely apt title for a book whose hero seems to only be capable of simulating love for our heroine. Brianna is trying to get funding for a library at the school she teaches at. To do so, she is forced to spend her summer in a Mars simulation, putting her in forced proximity with Roman, who is actually the son of the principal who denied funding for the library. I mean, long story short, Brianna was just way too into Roman. He seemed only sort of into her, and space is just not sexy, especially if you're not really there. Skip. Okay, picture this. Your entire family dies, and you decide to assume the identity of your brother, who I believe is a duke, so that you can keep the family fortune and also live your truth as a trans man. And that's what our hero Christopher does in A Gentleman's Gentleman. He's incredibly private and kind of lonely, but he doesn't want to marry for obvious reasons, so he sort of keeps to himself. Except that he is told at the beginning of this story that he has to seek a wife lest he lose his inheritance and I believe the house that he lives in. So he goes to town to do just that, hoping he might be able to find a lady that won't want heirs. To go to town though, he needs a valet because dressing yourself is gauche. James, our valet, is hot as fuck and very traditional and really wants to do his job right after being hired. Christopher is like, I'm hiring you only for appearances. Anyway, these two fall in love. I did really like Christopher and James, but I will say I was ultimately pretty disappointed in how little time these two get to spend together. These two don't get together until the very end of the book, and I understand why. It's a very high stakes situation, but I feel like we could have had more friendship built on page or something in the meantime. Regardless, as there are very few trans historicals, I do think you should give this one a go. Now, why historical romance needs a 2000s YA romance starring a troubled teen girl cover? I'll never fucking know. The good news though is that The Trouble with Anna is actually a lot of fun. I picked this book up on audio from my library, not knowing it was a historical romance, but I listened to it on my drive from Houston to Austin, and I had a really fabulous time. It's about a bad bitch named Anna who races horses and kisses dudes. Trouble is, she needs to marry or end up broke. Anna, though, wants to ride horses and kiss dudes, so she decides to bet on herself in a horse race so she can pocket the money from said race and not have to rely on her inheritance. In the mix is Lord Ramsay, who she kind of hates but also kisses. Now, do I remember why these two start kissing and why they end up together? No, I couldn't tell you. That's not really the point though. The point is that the romantic development here was actually there. I don't remember how it started. It doesn't matter because I liked watching it unfold. Laughed out loud. I actually teared up at the end of this book as she was racing that horse. Horse girl boss moment. Read it. It's a fun one. Now picture this. You love Supernatural, or in this case, a show that's got a similar fan base, but werewolf detectives. So much so that you run the wiki, write fanfic, and you've made lifelong friends from the fandom. Especially obsessed with this guy Alex, who plays your favorite character, and go to Comic-Con dressed up in a very niche, very well thought out cosplay, meet your hero, you take a picture. He's nice, even though you're a little bit awkward. But as you're leaving, you end up overhearing him talk shit about you, kind of tearing you to shreds and tearing other fangirls to shreds in addition, okay? Now, years later, that dude, he is 40 plus with a failing career, and instead of getting to really laugh about the situation and the fact that he, you know, is kind of a loser. He is turning into an actual fucking werewolf and he needs your help in real life. And you created the wiki, so that's why he's hitting you up. And also your dad, he studies wolves, so he's got some wolfy information for you. Loved the premise of this book, and the first 30% I was actually into. I was like, how's this gonna work? We've got like a dude that's turning into a werewolf. Are we gonna find out about like more werewolf packs? Like what's going on? Is this a one-off? It's gonna say psychosomatic. Anyway, Rosie Dannon just writes in a way that I cannot vibe with. Her shit is just so melancholy and real, but in a way that I'm like, how many bad things can happen to one person? Again, I like a sense of reality, but only sort of. In this case, our heroine Alex is an outcast in her town, and I think that she is trying to raise money for a youth center that seems like would benefit everybody, but no one wants to donate because she's in charge of it. Just one example of many bummer vibes in this book. And the hero, tell me how you're pushing 40 and like pathetic and weird and fucking mean. Sexy wolves exist elsewhere. Skip this. I wouldn't go so far as to say Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez is unmemorable, but I did start writing up the premise for Just for the Summer in my notes. This one is about Rhysand, Xavier. He is a vet unwilling to give an assholeless kitten a poop shoot, brought in by our heroine Samantha. The kitten is saved despite Xavier's doubts, and he and Samantha end up actually going on a really great date, kind of correcting any misunderstandings that they had about each other. Despite how great this date is, it's actually going to be a one-off because Samantha is going back home to take care of her mother, who is in the first stages of memory loss. And like I said, Xavier lives on the other side of the country. Somehow though, they attempt to make this work. I say kind of because that is my main gripe with the story. I don't think there's a right answer to how you handle a family member having a horrible degenerative condition, but I did hope for our hero to not have to give up his career, his life savings, and his health for his relationship. He runs himself ragged trying to maintain this long distance relationship, and I very much understood why our heroine couldn't give back in the same way that he could, but again, it felt like he was giving up too much, and I really feel like a romance should be sacrificial on the part of both hero and heroine. I really wish these two had come to a solution quicker, and that I would have felt happy about, again, both characters' sacrifices. That being said, this book is an Abby Jimenez book. The banter was there, the chemistry was there, the relationship development, the romance was there. I do think this is worth a read if you tread cautiously with those trigger warnings. Do I love reviewing books? Sure, but I actually like reading other people's reviews more because I think many people are much funnier and more intelligent than me. None so much as Monty. Monty is fucking hilarious, intelligent, always seems to know exactly how to word what I'm thinking about a book, which is why I find it so funny that his review of this book opens with, I never thought I'd see the day where I gave an Emily Henry romance full 5 stars. Considering this is the first time that I have given Emily Henry's book full 1 star. Great Beautiful Life is easily my least favorite book that I've read by her. Alice and Hayden are competing for the opportunity to write the life story, the biography of this older woman who is an heiress and comes from a family with a lot of scandal and tragedy. Alice and Hayden fall in love, or at least I think that was the aim because I never saw that actually happen on page. Really, there are 2 issues here. The interviewing of the old lady was fucking boring and the romance was non-existent. Skip, hop, jump rope, I don't give a fuck. I just better not see this book as the winner of the Goodreads Choice Awards this year. Sometimes the one that got away should stay gone. I said what I said, because Dusty Tucker in Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage deserved better than Cam. This one is a second chance romance by Lila Sage, and I think it is unfortunately my least favorite in the series. The second chance romance is about Dusty, who ends up swooping in after Cam is left at the altar. She needs a place to live, she ends up living next door to Dusty, and they rekindle their high school romance. I think that second chance romances are really challenging to pull off, so I don't think it is a discredit to Lila. I don't think that she is like untalented. I think that you have to show the past and present compatibility and how these characters are going to work today in the present when they couldn't in the past. And in this case, I just think Cam was too exhausting of a heroine to really make this story work. And I hate just dogging on the heroine here, but she really was the problem. I felt like her actions were illogical and that communication maybe would have solved a lot of her issues. This is a skip for me. He might be a murderer, but Vuk, I'd like to Fook. King of Envy is the 5th book in the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang. And apparently I have read the previous 4 as well. This one is, though, for sure the best. It follows Ayana, a model who is engaged to some random dude. I think his name is like James or something like that. James is besties with Vuk, and Vuk has wanted Ayana since like forever, like since before this engagement, since before he even really knew who she was. He's like, this woman is beautiful, she is divine, I have to know her. Anyway, the engagement between James and Ayana is a marriage of convenience, with neither really interested in fucking the other, so there's not a whole lot of messiness when Vuk again kind of like pursues Ayana, but it still feels messy in like a really fun way. And they wind up in a few situations together, and I was like, oh my god, kiss already. My only bitch with this book and most of Anna's books is that this one was too fucking long. I get that there's typically some dark element in her books or suspense element to her books. I was just sort of over it by the time the hero and heroine got together. Then when I was listening to the audiobook, I was like, how do I have a fucking hour left? This is crazy. I was having to sit through 100 pages of like kidnapping, hypodermic needles, kicking ass, you know the drill. Still worth a read. Sure, Avery is freshly single, but she's awkward and she's weird and she's uptight. Taylor isn't. And when Avery decides she wants to explore more of her sexuality, she enlists the help of Taylor to help her date women. Taylor is of course happy to help, but she cannot help but notice how hot Avery is, which proves challenging because Taylor has kind of promised to her best friend that she is going to go on a little bit of a celibacy and dating pause. So these two are basically fighting their attraction for each other for the majority of the book. You want a queer book that is set in Napa that has good anxiety rep and good sexual tension, but not a lot of drama, in my opinion. I think you should check out Flirting Lessons. Crash onto a desert island with your ex and crash your sandy bits together. That's what I always say. Crash Landing is a funny and heartwarming debut about Piper and Wyatt, who were childhood besties turned GFBF. But after a series of events, they ended up breaking up, and Piper is still heartbroken and a little bit bitter and angry. But since these two are stuck together, they get to work through that, while we are also privy to the flashback moments from their childhood. Honestly, this book was really sweet. It might not be the most memorable, aside from our hero getting like life flighted off of this island, but it's a pretty decent beach read, and I do think it's worth a try. My best friend's honeymoon dares to ask the question, what would happen if your incredibly sweet but ultimately misguided and incompatible boyfriend proposes to you and surprises you not only with this proposal, but also with a surprise wedding that's happening in 7 days? Makes you ultimately think, I don't think this right for me. I'm saying no to this. But he's so nice that he also planned out your honeymoon and insists that even though you guys aren't getting married, you should take this honeymoon. You deserve a break, and you should take your best friend with you who's wanted to get all up in your vaginal canal for the length of your friendship. And I do mean all up in it. There's a moment where our non-binary love interest asks, do you like being worn as a puppet? All fisting said canal. Now, I'm not one for puppetry myself, but that aside, I thought this book was fun and actually hot. Both characters are trying to figure out their professional careers and also how this burgeoning romance is going to affect their lives going forward. My only real gripe is that Elsie, our heroine, says some pretty hurtful things and some pretty untrue shit to Ginny during the third act breakup. That did kind of piss me off, but a queer rom-com this wild, pick it up. Now, Icarus has not, in fact, flown too close to the sun, but he has been captured by Poseidon, and the punishment, hot beef injection, consensually. Actually, I think Icarus is doing most of the— all I really remember here is that it's smutty and the smut was surprisingly good. Poseidon, I think in this story, he's actually very sweet and kind of bashful, and he likes being punished. So even though Icarus is technically the one being imprisoned, he gets to be the boss of Poseidon. You know, spankings and handcuffs and things like that. If you like the series, I think you'd like this book. I don't particularly love Katie Robert books. I think they are very smut heavy. Not super gelling with her on their romantic relationship front. I think she's too busy, I was gonna say creating sex gel, but that sounds disgusting. I would skip this. I think legally, if the hero of your book wearing suspect headwear in the bar he's picking your heroine up from, you should be in jail for a couple days. I wish I could recall exactly what form of hideous hat our hero was wearing in this, but I believe it was a trilby paired with some sort of pirate-like outfit, and not in like a sexy costume sort of way, just a, oh god, this guy can't dress kind of way. Basically, Lexi, our heroine, goes home, or should I say goes to houseboat with Zeke to hook up. He's older than him, but he pursues her relentlessly, and they're like, let's have sex. And she's like, okay, sure, sounds good. She wakes up, and she realizes that she wants to get the fuck out. This is not a thing that she wants to repeat. She can't leave because the houseboat was not tied up, and now they are again swept away at sea. Once the meet gross, opposite of a meet cute happens, I was just kind of out of this book anyway. It's just so clearly not my thing, on top of it being a Beth O'Leary book, whose books I don't tend to like. Also, in trying to research this book and remember this one, I got spoiled for the ending, and I desperately want to share it with you, so skip ahead if you don't want to hear it. Basically, our heroine has been helping raise her best friend, owner of the bar she got picked up from, helping her best friend raise this child that she had. Who's the daddy of that child? It's Zeke! Skip, milady. May and beyond. What if Jeremiah Fisher grew up and got his money up, and like the endearing parts of his personality remained, but he didn't have all of those like annoying bits where he feels like should be mothered by his partner? Basically who our hero is in One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. This book is about Alice, who is revisiting the cottage that she visited at 17 with her grandma, as her grandma is healing from a surgery. She's been a little down, and Alice is like, okay, I've also been a little down. I'm taking a break from work. We're gonna go to this beach house or cottage, lake house, whatever the fuck. And I am going to take a break from work, and I'm also going to tick things off of my summer bucket list because I'm a little, not uptight, but I'm shy. And I never had that like fun summer that I got to see other people have. Anyway, she puts herself out there and knocks things off of her summer bucket list, which doesn't necessarily include Charlie and her summer bucket, but that happens anyway. Since he, I think, is supposed to be checking on the cottage she's staying at and her Gma staying there. It's a fun time. pick it up. I like a damaged hero. I don't like when he surveils his lover. I like a guy working through his trauma. I don't like when he's a dick to his very understanding lover. I like, you get the point. Love Arranged by Lauren Asher is about Lorenzo, who is running for mayor of the small town, even though most people don't really like him. And also Lily, who ends up fake engaged to this guy to help improve his image, because she wants to ensure that he wins because his competitor, someone who is trying to shut down her family business and all of the businesses in this one land area. Sure, she could set up shop somewhere else, but she doesn't want to. Anyway, to make things more complicated, Lily and Lorenzo used to talk on a dating app and confide in each other. Parts of this book that I appreciated, I really liked that Lorenzo needed therapy and he ends up going to therapy for his trauma. I thought that that was really awesome. I liked that he wanted to be a good guy even when his OCD was telling him to do some crazy shit, and I really did root for him for most of this book. Lily was also really sweet. She was dealing with her own shit, her own grief, mostly the death of her dad. She also wanted to keep her family business going and also start her own business, but there was just a little bit too much going on here. For starters, this book is 560 pages long, but more than that, I actually don't think that the hero and heroine needed history here. I don't feel like it added to the story. I feel like it made things more confusing, and I think it would have been totally fine for these two to not have history and to actually like meet on page and for their relationship to unfold a little bit more organically. Also would have been extra fine with our hero not having quite as many fuck ups. If you like the series, I think this is worth a read, otherwise skip. Don't think I need to tell you why a book with no trigger warnings for eating disorders that centers around a woman recovering from an eating disorder on page should be a skip, especially when the message here is you'll love your body once someone else appreciates it. Fuck no. I never thought I'd get enough of Kennedy Ryan, and honestly, I haven't, okay? Can't get enough. The book, I kind of have. I really want to see more books with heroines living their life without the desire for kids, because frankly, only one person in my entire friend group actually wants them. And I know that that's not like a representative sample size or anything, but I've seen the statistics. I know so many women don't want children. I just expected, I guess, can't get enough to do a little bit more with that idea, especially considering how not by the books Kennedy Ryan's writing is. In this book, our hero is breaking up with his long-term girlfriend at the start of the story because she wants children of her own, and our hero, I think, had a daughter from a previous relationship and he has no interest in having any more children. Sees our heroine at a party, he thinks she's sexy. When he finds out that they both like business and she doesn't want kids, he's like, oh my god, match made in heaven. The only thing really standing in their way is the fact that Hendrix is trying to be there for her mom, who is suffering from memory loss. I don't know, this one just felt a little bit surface level, which feels so weird to say for a Kennedy Ryan book. There's just something there that wasn't super quantifiable for me. I just didn't feel like there was that deep connection that I see in other Kennedy Ryan books. I didn't love the romance here. I didn't even love the plotline with Hendrix and her mom and Alzheimer's. I was expecting more there, honestly. That being said, it's a Kennedy Ryan book. Like, even Kennedy Ryan, not at her absolute to be top best, is better than most, so I do think it's worth a read. It's a Love Story isn't really one, unless you consider secondhand embarrassment hot and romantic. Our main character Jane used to be the punchline on a teen TV show back in the day. Now she is far from the spotlight and is working behind the scenes on movies. But the most recent one that she thinks is going to be a hit, the studio isn't entirely convinced. So in a moment of panic, Jane offers up the idea of getting a famous musician that she used to kind of know to do an original song for the movie. Now though, she has to track down that guy and to ask him in person. The guy that she's tracking down is actually the love interest. That would be Boring Dan, who works at the same studio and likes artsy-fartsy films, different than what our heroine is trying to get produced. Musician dude, Jack, is actually playing at a festival in Dan's hometown, so Dan and Jane go to stay at his family's house. They fall for each other. So pitiful, the romance was so tired and so bland, and our heroine, I was really hoping that she would grow out of the stereotype, or this box, or this archetype that people were putting her in, that she would stand up for herself in asking this guy to make this song. She doesn't, and when she actually asks him, it is so painful to read. Truly, the secondhand embarrassment I felt was something I will never forget. Skip. I think I was tired when I typed my notes for this next one because all I've got for Dream On Ramona Riley is nah. And I think that makes sense considering that I just don't vibe with Ashley Herring Blake's writing. Her main characters are just a little bit too irritating for me. I think some people might see them as real. I think that is at least the point. They almost always irritate me, and this book was no exception. It is a sapphic romance where a girl is stuck in a small town helping raise her little sister. Her little sister is now going to college and she is trying to figure out what to do with her own life when a movie comes to town, and she's always wanted to be a costume designer. So she gets this opportunity to work on this movie. She ends up falling for the lead actress, Dylan. I just didn't love it. I mean, mean, hats off to Ashley Herring Blake for always delivering with hot sex scenes, but ultimately this is a skip. Water is not just how people in Philly pronounce water. It's also the name of the Dutch hero in Rachel Lynn Solomon's What Happens in Amsterdam. Okay, actually, I'm pretty sure it's not pronounced water. I think it's pronounced like wooter or something like that. Danny is escaping the States after a breakup. Her parents are not controlling, but they're a little too protective, and she's just excited to get the fuck out of there. She's like, get me to Amsterdam. I have a job I'm excited about. I have an apartment that's gonna rock. I get there, neither of those things is real. I'm freaking out. Thankfully, she runs into an exchange student who she used to fuck back in high school, and he's got a spare apartment. Hello, thank you, Trust Fund King. It is a fun second chance romance with a delightful mutual masturbation moment. If changing it is not, but yes, worth the read. Old ladies deserve dick too, and I know someone in the comments is going to say 42 is not that old, and you're right, it's not. However, it is old in the olden days, and that is where Lady Augusta Colebrook, aka Gus Gus, is it just Gus? Anyway, it's where she's from, or the time period she's from. I didn't realize that the Ladies' Road Guide to Utter Ruin was the second book in a series, which made this kind of a confusing reading experience. Our heroine is trying to free her convicted felon boyfriend from prison. She is also trying to investigate some underground seedy shit in a sex club. I don't know, I feel like if I had read the first book, I would have been more invested. It was still fun, things considered, and I feel like if you've read the first book, read this book. If you haven't, you're probably not missing much. Ready to score? More like, I can't believe you scored because you're such a mean lady. Okay, that was a really weak intro, but I can't muster many shits to give about Ready to Score by Jodie Slaughter. It's a walla romance about Jade and Francesca, who are competing to be the next football coach at a southern high school. It was boring. Jane was kind of mean to Francesca, who was really new to this school, and honestly, it's just nice. Skip. Sounds like love, or like, sounds like I have voices in my head, but he's not that charming, and this book felt oddly hollow. I'm gonna have better lead-ins. The rest of the books on this list. Sounds Like Love is another magical realism story from Ashley Poston. Joni, our heroine, writes songs, but she's had a little bit of like a roadblock ever since her mom diagnosed with dementia. It's all that's really on her mind. She wants to be there for her mom. So she's like, you know what? I'm having trouble writing. Let me just go home. Let me reconnect with my family, with my town, with my mom. When she gets there, everything is changing and everything looks a little bit different. And that's making things complicated, along with the voice that she's hearing in her head. I believe is a boy band star turned musician, serious musician. I don't know. He was honestly not that memorable. It's a town though, so that they can write this song that's in both of their heads, and also so they can maybe get rid of their like telepathic connection. It was just very meh. For the record, I know was not a great way to describe a book for video purposes, but it's the truth, and it's really the only way that I can think to describe this book. It just never went deep enough in any one direction. Pun intended. I gave it 2 stars, and I think it's a skip. I love lesbian spies. I just wish someone else would have written about them. I read another book by May Marvel, an author-writing duo, last year, and I just didn't really connect with their writing. The writing this time around was certainly better. I think the choice to have a long-term relationship recently broken up and then getting back together was not the right one here. I don't think there is enough breathing room to justify the breakup. Like, you're not having these characters grow on their own and then coming back together as like more self-actualized people who can like be romantically involved. You're really just having them break up for no fucking reason, and we're also not getting to see relationship development on page because they've already done that before. Skip. Hannah Montana movie, but make the heroine Native American. If that isn't enough to sell you on this next book, I don't know what will. Love is a War Song is about Avery, who is Muskogee. Doesn't know much about her heritage because her mom left Oklahoma to help manage Avery's career from a very young age. So posing in a war bonnet on the cover of Rolling Stone, it's just not something that Avery really thought would cause an uproar. After a few more missteps and her label threatening to cut her album altogether, Avery ends up moving in with her grandma and working on the family ranch. Learning about her culture a bit, and also falling for Lucas, who really does not fuck with her at the beginning of the story. I had the same complaint with this book that I have had with a few on this list, which is that I just wanted it to go a little bit deeper. Wanted to see more relationship development with Lucas. He seemed like a great hero, but we didn't really get to know him as well as I wanted. And I also wanted a little bit more of Avery learning about her heritage. Mostly selfishly, I wanted to learn more about her culture. That being said, it was still very charming, and I do think it's totally worth a read. Now, the best part of How to Lose a Lord in 10 Days, it was the cougar at the country house trying to bang all the eligible gentlemen. Everything else, meh. From the title here, I'm sure you can guess that this book is based on how to lose a guy in 10 days. Our heroine Lydia is proposed to by a guy, and he is definitely an eligible match. He is charming on the surface, but she overhears him before this proposal saying that he doesn't believe in marriage and he doesn't want to be romantically involved with anybody. So she's not exactly like wowed or impressed or I guess flattered by this proposal. And so she thinks in the next 10 days before this engagement's formally announced, I'm gonna find a way to get this guy to just beg off. So she goes to his country house where all his family and friends are staying for a little summer party. She deeply embarrasses herself and him in the process. Eventually he catches on and there's some like banter and shit like that. This book just felt so fucking long. It felt so fucking long, and it's only 384 pages. It just felt like a repetitive slog. skip. I really love the premise of Chicken Shop Date, but I just really wish they were sucking down chili dogs, don't you? Our heroine Ava is, in fact, basically the host of Chicken Shop Date, but make it hot dogs. When she sees her college ex, who was a total douchebag, go viral for his podcast that teaches men how to be good partners, she decides she's gonna blast him on TikTok, blasting off a series of events that result in these two pretending to date to show the world that Riley, our hero, is actually who he's been claiming to be in this podcast. You know, this reformed, I was gonna say reformed rake, reformed douche, reformed frat bro, and it's also supposed to get Ava the attention she wants on her show. It's pretty fun. Is Ava the fucking worst? Yeah, sort of. I mean, sure, Riley used to suck, but nothing in the present is a true reflection of that, so I mean, I feel like she could have cut him a little bit of slack, and I do think that Ava's growth and her career trajectory was a little bit overlooked, but Riley was really sweet, and I did like elements of this book, so pick it up. I've long been a hater of the tradition of naming your son after his dad. Never more so than in a romance where you're giving your hero a sexy first name, Nico, but having him go by the nickname Junior. That is a dog's name that one should not be screaming in bed, especially if Junior is a dude you went to high school with who's been paying for your OnlyFans since it essentially opened, asking for very specific explicit videos of you, even when in real life you can't fucking stand him, and he knows this. I understand Caught Up is a dark romance, so Junior is also part of the mob and is like kind of a stalker, but like it's supposed to be sexy in the name of love. I just didn't find it sexy, and I think even lovers of the first book also don't find this book sexy, and if you haven't read this book, I don't think you should. Skip it. I've said that I'm not a monster fucker, but if they're completely humanoid, they got fangs, help me in. Unfortunately, that does not extend to vampires who wear sheepskin thongs paired with leather hoodies. Zom Rom-Com by Olivia Dade is about our main character, Evie, who at the start of the story is running from zombies. She is aided in this because all she's got in her fucking hand is a burrito, not a machete. She's aided by her neighbor, a dude who she thought was named Chad with a personality to match. Turns out he's actually a French vampire named Max with a questionable fashion taste and a big fucking attitude. And I live for camp, and I really like Olivia Dade's writing, but I feel like the info dumping in this really took away from the story, and to be honest, I really didn't give a fuck about the zombies. Like, you know, sure, we're hiding from the zombies, but I wanted more emphasis on the us fucking in this bunker sort of thing, rather than like a, let's learn all about the zombies and we can take them down. I don't know. It's a little too Zombieland for me. It's just like, wasn't excited. I just want to see fuck. I just want to see fuck a vampire. But maybe not this one because of his sheepskin thong. We have got to stop romance podcast epidemic, and I don't mean people creating romance podcasts. I mean romance is about podcasts. In this one, we've got Maeve and Finn, who have been running a successful sex, relationship, dating advice podcast for quite a while, but they had a romance for a little bit. It kind of fizzled, and Maeve does not want to work with this man anymore, but she's got a Spotify deal, and one of the stipulations is she has to work with Finn. So she's like, I guess we'll figure out how to make this work, and Finn really wants to make it work because he wants to fall back in love with her and, like, you know, win her heart. I didn't like this book. I found it messy. I feel like these characters didn't communicate for shit, which is very ironic considering that they have a romantic relationship advice-giving podcast, okay? It was messy, and not in a fun, chili cheese dog sort of way. Well, actually, is really on the brain with the glizzies. And you know, the good news is, this is the last book that I have to talk about, and it is dinner time. I know what I'll be having. I hope you all had fun with this, and you're gonna add some new things to your TBR. Stay tuned, because I have a couple more of these kinds of videos coming this year, and then, well, who knows? Thanks so much for watching this video. I love y'all so much, and I'll see you in the next one.